Hey, happy Saturday. So back to the 530N. Homelite 530N's back on the bench here. Pretty determined to get this thing running. And I'm hesitant to pull the carburetor off this thing. I got it in my head that it'll run. There's just obviously maybe some old, maybe tarnished fuel in there. Hopefully, most of the time you got to take the darn things off and and clean them. But if I get lucky, I'm really trying to not pull this thing off. But they operate slightly different. This is what they call there's a Tillotson HP. This guy right here. And I lucked out. I managed to find a fella that had this literature, and man, what a help this is to understand this carburetor. So this is, I don't know if it's the first one, but it seems like it's probably one of the first Tillotsons that actually had a pump diaphragm. I think the earlier ones, when they switched from being a float carburetor like you see in a lawnmower and snowblower and probably cars, I suppose, so that you could run these saws, in any direction. Because with a float carburetor, if you were to put this saw on its side, well, it wouldn't run. It would flood out or something, right? So what they did with the early versions of these, the 26 LCS and the 20 MCS saws, is they had like a little thing where you could switch the you could flip the rear handle, I think is what it was, and then basically that kept the carburetor upright, but the whole saw, yeah, that's what it was. The handle stayed where it was, the carburetor, and the whole saw would flip over, and then you could cut the tree down that way. So I guess they decided that they would improvise and make a saw that had a diaphragm carburetor. So anyway, that's what this is here. So trying to figure this darn thing out. Luckily I found this. Man, there's so much good information in here. It's not even funny. So service, instructions is what I was looking for. And it talks about, how the carburetor works. And it works, like most other carburetors. It has a fuel pump on it. I'll just set you over here for a second. Sorry about the bad angle. So it works like most, carburetors that most of us probably have worked on if you worked on any of these old saws. But it is slightly different. So let's kind of try and, go through this a bit for the little bit that I do understand at this point. And then we'll try and take it out in the garage and get it running, because I flushed out the diaphragm chamber. So first things first, let's talk about, trying to find an angle here that isn't terrible for you. Well, kind of fuzzy. Yeah, it's not really. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what you've got first is, obviously the tank, the feed line. And I took this darn thing off and I damaged it. I got one coming. I'm so stupid. When I had this thing on, I didn't take out this fitting, and there was two screws that were hiding. I thought it was only two screws. I seen one there, took those two screws out, and then started prying on it and thinking that it was like a press fit or something. So I heated it, and just stupid. If I had taken my time, I would have seen that there was actually two other screws down in there. Why is this thing so messed up? I'm not really focusing very well. And I pried it off and broke it. But anyway, I was able to seal it back up with some sealant until the new one comes in. It's not leaking. I mean, it's fine. But anyway, just beware of that. If you take this off, there's 4 screws, and they actually come out quite easily after that. But take this fitting off here, that fitting off there. Take this line out, make your life easier. Turn this thing that's threaded in, come out, and then you can pull this thing out, and then you can service the fuel line and filter inside. Line comes down, so this is into the carburetor, and what's is kind of nice is why is this friggin' thing not focusing? What is going on here? All right, I'm gonna check the settings on this thing. There we go. Okay, so all right, I had something going on with the settings. I don't know what, it wouldn't focus. So we'll just restart it. So now my battery's going low. Wonderful. So yeah, as we were saying, comes in, it's marked, says in. Goes up into the diaphragm chamber, and that's what this is right here, is the diaphragm chamber. You can see the gasket here, and there's a diaphragm in there. I believe there's only really one gasket on this thing. If I see it properly, it's just one chamber. So kind of, you know, not like the HLs and stuff where you had a chamber on the top and the bottom, or a stack of chambers, I guess, sorry, on the HLs and the HSs, you know, had two sides. This one only has the one chamber, which makes things a little simpler, I suppose. So anyway, in, goes up into the chamber. There's a diaphragm that basically pumps, and it's actuated by, is it this one here? Yeah, so this one here goes up to the crankcase. And I'm assuming there's a check ball in there or something that basically seals so that you don't have backflow that goes back. I'd have to look at the parts diagram, but this is basically the impulse line. And that's really similar. That's exactly how, you know, well, I wouldn't say modern because I don't work on anything past 1980s, but I'm assuming all carburetors have, you know, either an impulse line, impulse hose that basically, you know, sends pulses to the pump chamber. It pushes the pump up and down and basically pumps the fuel from the tank. Now the models that they're talking about here, the H, they had some sort of a system that pressurized the tank. And I'm not sure how that worked. But this was the new edition, was one with a pump that had an impulse line. So fuel comes in, up into the pump chamber, impulses from the crankcase, pump fuel from this line up to the top. And in here is basically where you have your mixing needle. There's only one jet. It's this guy here. And this is where you basically could turn this clockwise or counterclockwise, so you're basically in or out to, you know, to increase the flow in this chamber, and go you know, basically out here based on, you know, like here's, you know, the throttle. Back in here you've got an idle screw right there, you can see, so you can set, you know, how much pressure is on this thing. Choke lever, so very similar to any carburetor that we've worked on, except a couple little things I was wondering. I was like, what the hell is this thing? You know, you push it in basically and it pushes the diaphragm up, so it'll allow fuel to pump through the carburetor. So I thought, oh, is it like a primer? Well, it is, but they tell you that you shouldn't use it because, you know, if you push it too much, you can prime too much fuel in. What it's actually for is for flushing this chamber out, so you don't have to take everything out. There's a screw right here that you can take out, and it's got like a, you know, like a shaft that goes down in. There's a little channel. You take this out. Well, here, I'll show you. Should I show you? I don't want to take it out, actually, but I'm going to take it out anyway, because it was a bit of a bugger to get it back in. Hopefully I have better luck. So this is the flush channel, and see that? Basically what it tells you to do in the service manual is to obviously take the spark plug out to make your life a little easier so there's not so much compression. And you're supposed to have 3 arms to do this, but you basically put the saw back down, open the gas valve so you have fuel going in here, and you depress this spring and it'll push up the diaphragm, and it'll allow fuel to pump into here, fresh fuel, but it comes out this bleed hole right here instead of going up into the engine, and it's supposed to flush out any foreign debris. So I just did that. There's man, where's that going? And for some reason this seems to be, oh yeah, no, so it went back in pretty easy this time. Last time I had a hard time getting it lined up. So that's supposed to flush out the diaphragm chamber, the pump chamber. So we'll see if we had any luck with that. I don't know if we did. I'm guessing we probably didn't have much luck with that. There's also, I think, some sort of a screen that's in here, based on what I see. On this, it talks about, you know, basically fuel comes in. So basically I said, this is right up into here. Fuel comes into the carburetor, goes up, and then goes, you know, up to the top part. So it's basically done this through there, up there, and then up into the part. And then in here, there's like some kind of like maybe like a basket strainer or something like that can be cleaned. I don't really know how to do that. It looks to me like you'd have to, you know, take all this off and then, you know, unthread it, which doesn't look to be overly easy. And I don't really want to do that because, man, you could really probably strip some stuff. So we're going to try it like this. So anyway, we're learning here. This isn't a how-to video like most of mine. This is just, hey, this is me trying to get, figure this old saw out and get it running. So let's shut her down here from the workshop, and next we'll pick it up outside in the garage, and we'll hear this beast firing up.